Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is Brother Malak from the 12 Tribes United. This is the Sabbath, part 2. We're going to go into Matthew's the 12th chapter, because some brothers and sisters use this to say that basically we can break the Sabbath in certain instances. It says, at that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were hungered and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. Now notice this. This was the Sabbath, and they plucked the ears of corn and they ate it. They didn't buy the corn. They didn't sell the corn. Neither did they go to work and reap the corn. They just went and got some corn and they ate it. Basically like you get an apple from the tree. But if you was to take an apple, you was to take a bucket and start reaping on the Sabbath, that would be going off. All right, so let's read down. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day. So now you read this and you think that they were breaking the Sabbath. Notice it says the Pharisees. It didn't say the Messiah. The Pharisees, which we know were wicked men that taught against the commandments. They were men who they were making up their own laws, because the scriptures don't tell us this. It doesn't say that you can't pick something and eat it on the Sabbath. It says you can't buy and you cannot sell. You cannot cook. You cannot work. It says nothing about getting some corn and eating it. All right? But the Pharisees had their own precepts. They had their own laws that they put in place. All right? So they wasn't breaking the Sabbath. The Pharisees, who did not know the law, said they were breaking the Sabbath. They were accusing them, and they was, they wasn't breaking the law. But he said unto him, meaning the Christ, the Messiah, have ye not read what David did when he was hungered, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them that was with them, but only for the priest. Or have you not read in the law that how on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Now, let's break this down to see if this means that they were breaking the Sabbath. Let's go to, matter of fact, Matthew 12:1, Deuteronomy 22. Matthew's, matter of fact, let's go to Deuteronomy, 1 Samuel 2:16. 1 Samuel 2:16. So this is 1 Samuel 2:16. 21:16. I'm sorry. 21:16. First Samuel 21:1. Then came David to Nob to Abimelech, Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid of the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? All right, so David went to the priest, and David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such a place. Now therefore, what is in thine hand? What is under thy hand? Give me loaves of bread in mine hand, or that which is present. So David told him that the king, wanted him to do some business, but really he was running from Saul, because Saul was trying to kill him. That's really what was really happening. So David was hungry because he was running from Saul. It says, and the priest answered, so David asked for bread from the high priest. And the priest answered David and said, There is no common bread under mine hand. What is common bread? That would be the bread that basically any Israelite can eat. But there is hallowed bread. The hallowed bread is the bread that was sanctified for the priest. It was the same bread, but it was sanctified just for the priest, in the tribe of Levi and the priest. It says, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. Why did he say that? Because this bread was a sacrifice. And to eat of this bread, these men had to be clean. They cannot be unclean. You cannot eat hallowed things and you're unclean, because that would mean death. That's what will happen to you. And David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days. So he said, none of us have dealt with a woman in 3 days since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are holy. So he said, these young men are clean. And the bread is in a manner common. So he said, in a way, it's, that bread that you have, in a way, is common. Meaning, in other words, this was the older bread, which still was for the priests, but in a way it was common, in a way because it was old bread. Because they would replace the bread. They would take away the old bread, and then they would replace it with new bread. It said, yea, though it was sanctified this day in this vessel. So the priest gave him hollow bread, for there was no bread there, but the showbread. The showbread is the bread that they gave the priest, that was taken from before the Lord to put hot bread in the day where it was taken away. So basically the priest gave David some of his hollowed bread. Why? Because David was in need. He needed the bread to eat. So was David supposed to eat of that bread? No. Why didn't they get put to death? Because they was clean. And on top of that, that was the only bread that he had left. So he gave it to David. So the Most High had mercy on him because he was hungry. David didn't buy, David didn't sell, because this was not done on a Sabbath day. All right, when the unleavened bread was put in the ovens, it was on the Sabbath day. All right, so this is what David did on the Sabbath day. Now, let's go to matter of fact, let's keep reading. Or have you not read in the law how that on the Sabbath day the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Why does it say that? Because on the Sabbath days, the priests cooked. They cooked the sacrifices on the Sabbath day. But it's written in the law, so it says that they profane the Sabbath. How did they profane the Sabbath? By cooking on the Sabbath, by cooking those sacrifices. But the scripture said they're blameless. Why are they blameless? Because it's written in the law. It's written in the law that they can cook the bread on the Sabbath. They can cook the sacrifices on the Sabbath day. This was exclusively for the priests and the sacrifices. This is why it's saying that. All right, so let's read down. It says 12 and 10. And he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will you not lay hold of it and lift it out? So let's go to Deuteronomy 22 and 4. Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 4. It said, thou shalt see thy brother's ass, or thy brother's, the ass is talking about a donkey, or his ox, fall down by the way, and hide thyself from him. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them again. So this is the law. The law doesn't say you can't do this on the Sabbath day. So if an ox, or it's basically talking about any type of animal, not have to necessarily be an ox. This is a law, and you use wisdom when it comes to this law. So if you have an animal break their leg or something happens on the Sabbath day, or they fall, you stop and help them. You can't say, oh, it's the Sabbath, I can't help you. That's not what the scriptures are saying. All right? So this is an example. All right? Let's go to Numbers 28, 9 and 10. Numbers chapter 28, verse 9 and 10. It says, and on the Sabbath day 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2 deals of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and a drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath besides the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. So they were still doing the sacrifices on the Sabbath. They were cooking the sacrifices. But we know we're not supposed to cook. But the priests were blameless for the simple fact that the law told them that they can do that. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23. Deuteronomy chapter 23. All right. We're going to explain this law. Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 24. It says, when thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat his grapes, thy fill eat his grapes, that thou may eat his grapes, thou fill at thy own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. So when the apostles, so this is basically talking about what the apostles did. It doesn't say you can't do this on the Sabbath day. If you're hungry and you didn't prepare, you could pick food from a tree. All right? Or if you go into your neighbor's yard and you could eat the grapes that's around the corners, but you cannot go and pick it out of their yard. It says, when thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor, thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. So it says you can pluck the ears of corn, which is what they did. It doesn't say that it was the Sabbath day and they couldn't do it. That's not in the law. This is something that the Pharisees made up, and they said that they broke the Sabbath. So this shows you that they were teaching the laws incorrectly in the temple, because they called that breaking the Sabbath and it wasn't. Now, if they would have took a sickle and they would have started reaping it, then it would have been breaking the Sabbath. That's working. All right. So this is what the Messiah was talking about, and this is what happened. So in conclusion, the apostles, they did not break the Sabbath, okay, in Matthew 12. So don't use it to justify going to work on the Sabbath, buying and selling on the Sabbath. No, they did not break the Sabbath, period. End of story. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is another episode of 12 Tribes United. Shalom.